Dr. Ian Buchanan is the president and CEO of Nia Education Group, has committed almost 3 decades in service of students, organizations, families, and communities. Dr. Ian has an impressively broad range of leadership, coaching, teaching, and professional development experiences. His work has been primarily in traditional public school district leadership, public portfolio charter district leadership, informal science education leadership, education nonprofit leadership, higher education administration, adult basic education, and board leadership. Dr. Ian's commitment to coaching and consulting capacity building is a skill, passion, and gift for Dr. Ian. This commitment to capacity building is driven by 2 guiding principles. The first guiding principle is, quote, to whom much is given, much is required. I know that's right. Ian recognizes his level of access, opportunity, and capital. He leverages that and decades of experience, technical skills, and passion for change to help individuals and organizations reach their fullest potential. The second principle that undergirds the work of Nia or Nia Education Group is the West African concept Ubuntu. Loosely translated, it means I am because we are. I just told you all I ordered a cap that says I am. Nia Education Group understands that we can only achieve transformative change if we embrace a commitment to a collective responsibility. We do our work with the belief that our commitment to our clients will translate into structural and systemic change. To ensure that he is fully equipped to empower clients, Dr. Ian has fused his decades of leadership, coaching, and consulting experiences with a deep technical expertise. Ian's approach to executive coaching and consulting is informed by the trainings below: professional coaching certification, transformational coaching, leadership coaching, cognitive coaching, instructional coaching, and each of these are certificated with various groups and companies, names you'll be familiar with, like the Maxwell Group. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Reading Circle microphones, Dr. Ian Buchanan. Dr. Ian, good morning.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. That was, when you hear things about yourself, it makes you feel a little bit uncomfortable because it sounds a little bit braggadocious, but I'm glad to be here.
Well, you know what? I am glad to have you here. And you know what? There's a reason, because many times my guests will come on and they'll say, don't read the whole thing. And I say, no, I like to read the whole thing because it is my hope that it's an inspiration for someone who may be listening that says, well, you know what? If it can happen for Dr. Ian, it can happen for me. So I always like to put it out there and let folks know, yeah, it can be done if you truly want it, if you work for it, if you have the passion for it, because it's happened for others. So it's always my hope that, if somebody listening might hear that and say, you know what, I'm going for it. I'm going to go for it.
I love that. I love it.
So this is interesting. Dr. Ian, this is one of the things I love about LinkedIn, because I have I'm over 24,000 connections now. I mean, and it's been over the last few years. That built up. So I'm over 24,000 connections. And whenever I'm scrolling through there and I see folks, particularly folks that have bios in education, I usually click onto them. I click on a link on them. So that's what happened with me and Dr. Ian. So we're on there. And now, LinkedIn gives you an opportunity to start messaging each other. And we start messaging each other. And, we talked about the show and everything. I said, how'd you like to be a guest on my show? He was like, sure. So we scheduled this date, and then, and those of you listening on, kind of like it gets crazy for me. I was telling Dr. Ian, I'm a one-man show, and I love it. But at the same time, everything goes along with that in terms of the scheduling of the guests, the talent, the publicity, and everything else. This past week was like a super busy, crazy week, and I didn't get a chance to do the promotion or even to reach out to him. And I was like, oh my God, I know I got him scheduled for Saturday morning. So I reached back out to him last night to confirm. And he was like, yeah, we're still on. So I was like, great. So we are here this morning, and I am thrilled to be talking to him because he wrote, because this is another thing that caught my attention, was his book. His book, the letters are King, King. And it's an acronym. Know the King within, inspire greatness in others for collective impact, navigate north, gravitate to great. And it's in black and gold, so he caught my attention. So we're going to talk about that this morning. It's his King 4-part leadership framework for Black men. That's the other thing that caught my attention. As an African-American male, as a Black man, that caught my attention. I'm always looking for anything dealing with that subject. So again, we're going to go with K, know the king within. I, inspire greatness in others for collective impact. N, navigate north. G, gravitate to great. And the author of this book is Dr. Ian P. Buchanan. All right, Dr. Buchanan, here we go. Like I said, usually my first question is kind of like, where did this all start? I mean, as a child, was this kind of like, did you read a lot as a child? What was your favorite subject? Did you envision yourself doing this, or, how did this come about?
Great question. So, no, I am not really a writer, which is so interesting. So my background, really my undergraduate background, is engineering. So growing up, I'm born and raised in a small community called East St. Louis, Illinois, and not St. Louis, Missouri. The Mississippi River divides us. Student of history, you may be familiar with East St. Louis because of the East St. Louis race riots back in 1917. One of the most tragic killings of Black people in our country. And so I'm from that community, and back in my day, if you were academically promising or what they would consider smart, especially in mathematics, they would typically move you to an engineering or business degree. So I went to undergrad for an engineer. So I'm a math person. I'm a science person. But at some point in my career, I did start to write. And basically, this is how the book came about. So I used to be one of the youngest people in probably all other spaces that I was in, whether we're talking about athletics, academics, organizations. And then all of a sudden, one day I woke up and I realized I was, quote unquote, Unc. I was the oldest person in spaces. And I went to an event that was for Black male school leaders. And when I went to the event, I realized when I looked around, like, dude, you are the oldest brother or one of the oldest brothers in the space. And something came over me like, all right, if you are the Unc now, then you need to have something to say. You need to be able to connect with the next generation and my generation and future generations in a way that is long-lasting and sustainable. And so for me, I'm a big music fan. Very specifically, I'm a hip-hop fan. And so after leaving this meeting, a little bit uncomfortable and a little bit conflicted, to be very honest, I was like, what can I do? So as soon as I got in my car, I heard a song by a rapper named Nas. And the song is called One Mic. And it talks about if you had the opportunity to elevate your voice, what would you do and what would you say? And at that moment, King just came into my mind. And so I took about a year and began to develop the book. And that's how it came about.
Man, I can't tell you how many authors I've interviewed that said the exact word you said in terms of, I don't consider myself a writer. And I'd say, you have a book, you're an author. But I have heard many of my guests over the years, because this is my 25th season, over the years that have said, I don't see myself as a writer. And I totally get that. And you also said your undergrad was engineering.
Yes, sir. Yep. Mm-hmm. So I started my academic career once I got out of college. I started as a National Science Foundation fellow, working for the St. Louis Science Center, developing, science exhibits for kids, and then I transitioned to become a mathematics teacher. So I'm a blurred, a black nerd.
That's all right. You know what? A couple of things. One, your company is do you say Nia or Nia? Which way do you say it?
It's Nia, and it is after the Kiswahili Kwanzaa principle of purpose.
That's what I thought, because my daughter's name, I named my daughter after that. Her name is Niara. It's the same. It's Niara. Niara with the same, it's the same thing. So I thought it was Nia, but I know some folks say Nia. So I just wanted to make sure. Yes. But it is Nia. Yes, absolutely. So, and then you are now see, again, I'm a principal of a school. And I was just saying that on Monday night, I had the opportunity to address at one of the colleges up here in New Jersey, at Ramapo College, like 25 freshmen who have already declared their education majors. And
awesome.
So I was sharing with them how it is very hard these days. Like, a lot of young folks are just not going into the profession. And there was one young lady in there. She said she was a math major and she intended to be a teacher. And I was just saying before we got on the air that she's going to be able to write her own ticket because math teachers and science teachers are in such demand. So if you were
Absolutely.
a math teacher, now, all right, now, so you're a math teacher because you're definitely to an extent, and I know this is the way the world sees us, not the way we see us, but to an extent, you would be an outlier, an African-American male math teacher.
Right.
Did you run into many into the field, or as we went to conferences and professional development, did you run into many black math teachers?
So what's interesting is, so there's this book out that was very popular in the early 90s, and it's called Savage Inequalities. This was pretty much a canon for education students to read this book, and it really talks about education inequalities across the country. And it talked about my community, East St. Louis, in the first chapter. And there's this quote that says, East St. Louis will be just like it is for many years to come, a scar of sorts, an ugly metaphor of chemicals and filth and effusions, a place for blacks to live and die within, a place for whites to pass by on their way to St. Louis. And I say that to say that that narrative is what people have about many black and brown communities. Here's the point that I'm making. Growing up, I had a black male math teacher in middle school, and I had two black male math teachers in high school. They are the reason that I became an engineer, and they are the reason that I became a mathematics teacher. And so for me, it was not an outlier. It was me following a path or following a legacy that had already been established for me. So I had a model of what it looked like. I had three models of what it looked like to be a mathematics teacher. And so for me, it was normal. It was not abnormal.
And see, again, like I said, my questions are generated from the responses. So the discussion, again, this is the importance of having teachers in front of you who look like you. I'm not saying every black child has to have every teacher be black, and I'm not saying every white child needs to have every white teacher. But it needs to be a mix. It needs to be a combination. What it cannot be, and it always, for the most part, has been, is the classroom looks one way and the teacher looks another. There's a lot of issues that go with that. But the exposure, again, I was blessed as I was coming, because a lot of time when I had this discussion with people were like, as I was going through elementary school, my second grade teacher was African American, my fourth grade teacher was African American, my fifth grade teacher was African American, and they were three African American women, and loved all three of them. I loved all my teachers, but I loved those three in particular because they did not play. They instilled greatness in us. They constantly was inspiring. And see, it is, and in the school that I lead right now, it's a small school, it's a leadership school, all boys school, and the staff is predominantly either African American or African. I mean, I have one from Cameroon, I have two from Nigeria, I have one from Jamaica. So it's very diverse, but at the same time, the kids are seeing folks who look like them. And so the fact that you said, I became a math teacher based on my role models who were math teachers, that says a whole lot for that argument of kids having people who look like them in terms of inspiring them.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. There was no question in my mind that I could do it and be impactful. And so, not only did I have three, African-American male mathematics teachers, but I also had three African-American male principals in my career, growing up K-12, which one was my uncle, who was a principal at my high school, who also happened to be the principal of Jackie Joyner Kersey, one of the Olympic greats, and also Don Harper Nelson, who also was an Olympian, and several other, academics and athletes and musicians. And so I had all of these role models, and so the blueprint was already there. I just had to Ian Buchanan it. That's all.
I know that's right. I know that's right. And, interestingly enough, the city I grew up in is the reputation of it, or is viewed the same way as East St. Louis is. It's the third largest, not Newark, it's Patterson. It's like, because, yep, Newark, Patterson, Jersey City, Camden, it's the same type perception. That's what folks have. I mean, there are some folks that honestly think that and this is not necessarily true, but there are some folks in their minds believe that if they come into Patterson, they're going into Sodom and Gomorrah. And it's kind of like the same thing, like that, what you were talking about, that perception of East St. Louis. I mean, there's this thing in there's passage in the Bible, can anything good come out of Nazareth? It's kind of like, can anything good come out of East St. Louis? Yes. Can anything good come out of Patterson? Yes. Can anything good come out of Newark? Yes. But folks need to understand that, know that, and see that. It's interesting because I'm finishing up where you are in terms of an ed doc. I'm in my last leg. If I can get my research done and everything, I should be finished. Thank you. Right. But one of the reasons when I wrote my essay, because they say, why do you want to pursue this degree? One of the things I put in there was I wanted to be a role model for my students. I wanted them to see someone who looked like them, still in school, somebody who's old. And then, whenever they start griping about homework, I said, well, I got homework too. And so,
Absolutely. You know what, man? You mentioned Patterson and Newark. And so when I talk to people around the country, especially people who are on the East Coast, especially people who live in that region, I always say I grew up in a place that's very similar to Patterson. And then I make the connection. And I have a couple of buddies who are educators who live in either the Newark or the Patterson area or grew up there. As a matter of fact, I have one friend, Dwayne. I think he's an ED at a charter management organization in Patterson. But yeah, I'm very familiar with Patterson.
So yeah, it's very similar dynamics, and the sad part is people paint a broad brush based on what they see in the news, based again on it being predominantly people of color, so forth and so on. And so that's another reason that you caught my eye, because you're debunking that. Like I've had many guests on, particularly African Americans, who like debunk the myths. And as your book is talking about being king, because I don't even know what to call it at this age, girlfriend or lady love, but anyway, we address each other as king and queen. She addresses me as her king, and I address her as my queen. And we have this conversation all the time, because as a matter of fact, when she comes across, any female, particularly African American female, she'll call them queen. And anytime she come across an African American male, she'll call them king. And we talk about, she says, you would be amazed at how many people get offended, particularly women. How many, when I call them queen, they get offended with that.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It was extremely interesting. And she was like, because she addresses, all females as queen. Like, how you doing, queen? Good morning, queen. Good morning, king. So forth, so forth. She says, the women that I have called queen, it's almost like, she says, don't you understand that's like an honor? Don't you understand? Like, do you not see yourself as a queen? Do you not see yourself as a king? Do you? And we as, people of color, that's exactly how Sounds of Blackness have a song, Royalty. And we need to, that's how we have to view ourselves. And that's what I love about what you're doing in terms of helping people get there. And the fact that you used king as an acronym. And like I said, the book, for those of you, I have it in the Kindle version, but it has I don't know what the hard copy looks like, but it has a black background, the letters in gold, King. It has the acronym on the front, a 4-part leadership framework for black men. Now, black and gold happens to be my favorite color combination as a member
I wonder why.
of the greatest fraternity in the world, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated.
Oh, man. I'm hanging up, man.
I'm also been a Pittsburgh Steelers fan since I was 12. So it's
really
just
hanging up, man. Oh, my God.
So it's just something about that color combination. I don't know, but it just caught my eye. And I'm also like probably the president of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. fan club. So just everything was coming together with this king.
Yeah. So a couple things. So I too consider myself to be a student of Dr. King, especially the last 2 years of King. The Tavis Smiley book, I think it's called
Yes.
The Legacy of Dr. King.
Yes, I've read it. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm a big fan of Dr. King. But one of the reasons is because, first of all, his brilliance and his strategic thinking and his ability to actually have a concept, a theory of change that sounds crazy to some people,
right?
But it worked,
right?
Because it's not nonviolence; it's nonviolent resistance.
Correct.
And I think that's the part that people don't really understand. It's not about being nonviolent. It's about that being a strategy for resistance. And that's really what people don't get sometimes. But anyway, I'm a big fan of King. And again, like you, I believe that I can change the temperature in the room.
Exactly.
And I use this term King because I'm trying to have people embrace a certain way of being, a certain way of thinking about themselves that is more appreciative than depreciative. And so that's really what it means. And plus, as educators, especially at the elementary level, we love using acronyms. So I was like, let me throw this acronym in here.
So
but the other two things, one, I'm embarrassed to say it right now, but I've been a Cowboys fan since the 70s.
Oh, when you were together then, because that's that's when the Steelers and the Cowboys, they were going at it.
Absolutely right. Tony Dorsett was my role model.
Yes.
Yeah. And the other thing is, you all were the first, but we perfected it, and we are the noobs. So we do it now.
I hear you. I ain't mad at you.
Yeah.
I hear you.
But what's so interesting, though, I tell people all of the time, I would not be here had it not been for an alpha man. And that was my elementary principal, Mr. Elliot McKinney, who I love dearly. And he's still alive. I love him dearly. I mailed him a copy of my book, and he actually read it and came back with some feedback. And so I just love the brother. So had it not been for the men of Alpha, I probably would not be here.
Well, at the end of the day, we all tease each other, but the Divine Nine, again, we're about the community service. Absolutely, we're about helping each other, lifting up. Because a lot of times, people, they'll look and say, I can't believe you're still, first off, in the Divine Nine, when you're in the fraternity, you're in it for life. It's not just about in college, just your college days. It continues on because you want to keep pulling people back up. Both of my daughters are Deltas. Mm-hmm. I have both of my daughters are Deltas, and their mom was a Delta, and so I was the Alpha. They just was not going the AKA. Well, I had an uncle who was Kappa, and he's passed away, and so the Divine Nine we're extremely familiar with. But it's a wonderful organizations when we come together to lift people up. And I'm looking at your first line in the book. Many of my brothers never get clear about their real leadership superpowers. We never quite figure out the unique contribution our leadership makes on the world or can potentially make on the world. Now, see, that's because, and I'm going to let you tell me a little bit about what you were talking about there, but I know how I interpret that is, and one of the things that I tell my students all the time is don't you allow anyone to make you feel any less than who you are because you're dark skin or you're African American or you're Hispanic or you're growing up in Patterson or you're this, that, and the other. Yep. Because, see, that's societal systemic messages. So
absolutely,
there's some reasons why we may or may not be clear. And like you said, you got brothers like you and myself who are trying to provide some clarity.
Yep. So for me, it took me so as an executive coach, I tell people all of the time, we have technical competencies that we learn. We have strengths that we kind of are born with or develop over time. But then we also have these superpowers that sometimes we don't necessarily see, but everybody else sees them. And so many times we don't know what those are.
Right.
And so many times it takes sometimes other people to point it out. I tell people one of my superpowers is I have the grandmother/mother effect. And what I mean by that is my grandmother, I can't speak for everybody else's grandmother, but my grandmother made every grandchild feel like they were the most special person in the entire world. Just super special, super unique. And they gave you a very unique kind of love. Moms make the children feel uniquely special, and everybody has that special relationship. And for me, as an education leader, as a teacher, as just a human being, people connect to me in a way, and I build relationships that make people feel special. And that means a lot. My point is we all need to figure that out, and that's really what I meant by that statement.
Well, I could not agree with you more, because when it's all said and done, that's what it's about. Is, the key to education, this is just strictly my view. I can't speak for anybody else, like you just said, but the key to education is relationships.
Absolutely right.
As you build your relationship with the teachers, you build your relationships with the students, you build your relationship with the parents, you build your relationships with the community, you build your, relationships with administration. It really is about, because what I'm trying to think of Rita's last name. But anyway, she just,
Pearson.
yes,
Pearson.
exactly. That's what I'm talking about. She passed away a couple of years ago. I could not agree with her quote more. Kids are not going to learn from teachers they don't like.
Yeah, no, that's facts. That's fact. But the other thing about that is people think that's just casual. That is a matter of neuroscience.
Yes.
The neuroscience says that when you create conditions that make people feel comfortable, that make people feel loved, that provide a space of joy, then you activate very specific chemicals that allow people to be open for learning, for receiving, for sharing. So this is not just fluff that Pearson is talking about. This is actual neuroscience. And in my work, I do a lot of work around both neuroscience and both somatics, which is how the body reacts to certain, triggers and experiences. So I do a lot of work with neuroscience and somatics. But the neuroscience tells us when you create a space that is caring, nurturing, loving, with high expectations, then you can make magic in classrooms.
It has been my experience as a teacher and as a principal. It has been my experience in both.
This is what I'll say too, Mark. And when you talked about those teachers that you had, those 3 African-American women,
yes,
what you described is a concept they call the warm demander. And so the warm demand, and it's in a book called Culturally Responsive Teaching in the Brain by Zaretta Hammond. But it talks about the fact that warm demanders are no-nonsense, high-expectation people who will basically put their arm around you and put their foot where when they...
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Matter of fact, my second grade teacher, Ms. Royster, she just passed away late last year. I maintained a relationship with her for over 50-some years. She was at my 50th birthday party. And and my fourth grade teacher was Miss Harrison. And, brother, you talk about a classy lady. My girl came to work dressed every day. She would be in a, the skirt and the jacket and the dress and the blouse and everything. Talk about head held high. Then I had Miss Campbell. And see, I remember all my teachers. And so, but those 3 I remember in particular. And you described it just now like a warm demander. Absolutely. That was them.
Yep. Yeah. And that's the type of archetype that many of our kids need. They need somebody who's not going to allow a C, or who's not going to allow them to make excuses. And there are justifications for certain things, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But they're going to hold them to a high standard. And high expectations require people to rise to the level of the expectation.
Absolutely, because I'm looking here now at the Black Kingmaker, because this is the deal. And the listening audience know I constantly reference my school because that's my day job when I'm not doing radio. But my school is all males, like I said, predominantly African-American and Hispanic, and we consider them a prince. So we tell them all the time, you're a prince on your way to becoming a king. Because I'm very clear, I am the king in here. I am king, but you're on your way to becoming king. And all the women who are in the building, they're your queens. These are queens. Because when I first got assigned to the school, Dr. Ian, I caught up with a few of the kids, running around during the summer. And they go in there and I said, well, I'm your new principal. I'm coming in. Tell me what you like about the school. Tell me what you don't like. And the trend was, regardless of which young man I spoke to, they talk about our mothers too much. So when they first said that, I said, I thought they were talking about the staff. I said, are you talking about the teachers? They said, no, we're talking about our classmates. So, okay, I know how to fix that. First day of school, we sat in a circle and we had a discussion. And we talked about how we're going to respect our kings, we're going to respect our queens, so we will not disrespect. And you need to understand that all of your mothers are queens. So therefore, I should not hear of anyone coming to my office because they disrespected a queen. Are you clear on that? Yes. Okay. You do understand all mothers are queens, right? Yes. So you're going to start. they stopped that almost immediately. Every now and again, I might get one to come in my office and I say, what happened? He talked about my mother. What do we say about disrespecting queens? And so that's how using that lingo or that language was how we cut down and shut down on that. I told you a couple of minutes ago, my lady love calls everybody queen. I'm looking here. You said the black kingmaker. Suppose you heard someone refer to themselves as kingmaker, especially absent of context. In that case, there could likely be several thoughts running through your head. You might say, quote, that sounds like an arrogant self-description, unquote. You might also say, quote, that sounds cool, but I am not clear about what the term kingmaker really means. Admittedly, when I first heard the term in context, I was intrigued to know what it meant. More specifically, I began to think about how the concept of kingmaker might apply to modern leadership. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, man. So there's a political term called kingmaker, and those are the people behind the scenes who basically prop up the leader, the top dog. They are more of almost like a chief of staff, a coach, a developer, a person who provides feedback, and they sort of do make that person. And so I started to realize that part of my role, or part of my superpower, is being a kingmaker. I make bosses. I make people who run the world. I make people who change the world. And even if I don't do it, it's very aspirational because that's what vision is all about. And so for me, part of my job is, and my company's motto is the Million Mind Movement. Our goal is to touch 1 million minds before we put this thing to a close. And so for me, every day is, and King is non-gender specific. But it is, how can I develop and build capacity and help people reach their full potential? And not only that, but even me as an educational leader, I'm very strategic about my role in the St. Louis region. How do I help this person become the next superintendent of X district? How do I help this person become the next HR director? How do I work behind the scenes? And many of my friends do call me like the Black Godfather because I make stuff happen behind the scenes. So that's really what it means for me.
I know that's right. And again, it is critical to have someone who is doing that. Because again, for other cultures and other groups, they do have people doing that.
Yep.
And our group, we need to do the same. I've referenced this quite often as well. Naeem Akbar, Dr. Akbar, in his book, Breaking the Chains of Psychological Slavery.
Yep.
There's a part in there where he says other cultures see their greatness everywhere they go. We need to be doing the same thing. We need to have our pictures hanging up. We need to have our statues. And we need to not be ashamed of doing that. We need not be ashamed of recognizing the greatness in our culture as well. And that always stuck with me. That if you ever come to New Jersey and you come into my office, or either if I send you a picture of my office, it is surrounded by our greatness. I mean, matter of fact, it got to the point where the teachers dubbed it the Marc Medley Museum of Life Experiences. And one of the teachers brought a sign, and I have it hanging on my door. But if you come in there, the greatness of who we are as a people is wall to wall. All 4 of the walls are covered.
Yeah. The thing that I think, we need to reconsider, some historians call it contributionism. And it's almost like, we prop up some of our heroes and we talk very vanilla, very sanitized about the work that they do. But sometimes we don't go deep enough to talk about their strategies, their challenges, some of the issues that they had. I was listening to somebody talk about James Baldwin last night, and I mean, this was a brilliant change maker.
Yes.
And a perfect example is, for me, if you have 1,000, quote unquote, Black history programs in schools, you will probably never hear the name Bayard Rustin.
You're correct.
However, he was probably the most influential African-American male in the 1900s.
Correct. Because he was the strategist. He was behind the strategy that Dr. King was using for many of it.
So he's my role model. He's who that's who I try to be. I try to be bio-rustic. I have a T-shirt that says, so I have a clothing line that goes along with the book because I do want to promote this. But one of the things it says, creative like Basquiat, genius like Imhotep, and strategic like Rustin. Because at one time he was called the most brilliant strategist in the entire world.
Correct.
And we don't talk about him.
Correct. That's you brought to mind something that my sister and I, we laugh about, but it's like in many instances, the only people other than black people know is Martin Luther King. You say, you ask him any kind of question, the answer is always Martin Luther King. Like, oh no, I'm sorry, that's not who we're talking about. Any question you ask.
King, when we talk about King, we need to ask, so why was he so unpopular in his last years?
That's right.
We need to talk about, did you know that his photographer was an FBI snitch?
Right.
Yeah. We need to talk about those things. Do you know he advocated for custodians, sanitation workers, janitors? That
is correct. Matter of fact, that's where he lost his life, was down there in Memphis with the sanitation workers. But absolutely, there's so much to this. That's why I love what you're doing. And ladies and gentlemen, I truly hope you've been listening since 6, but I really, really, really hope you've been listening since 7, because my guest this morning is Dr. Ian Buchanan, and we're talking about his work as well as his book, King, 4-part leadership framework for Black men. And the word King is an acronym. Know the King within. Inspire greatness in others for collective impact. Navigate north. Gravitate to great. Let's talk about each one. Let's talk about each letter and the sentence that goes behind it. Know the King within. Let's start with there.
Yeah. So, the first leadership is self-leadership. The first knowledge is self-knowledge. The first awareness is self-awareness. The most important aspect to leadership is EQ, not IQ, emotional intelligence. And so in order to thrive as a leader and really to thrive as a human being, then self-awareness is crucial. And when I talk about self-awareness, I mean understanding your strengths, your technical competencies, your superpowers, and even more importantly, or most importantly, your self-saboteurs. What are the ways, what are the mindsets, what are the unchallenged beliefs and assumptions that I make about myself and the world that limit my full potential? And so that is what I talk about with that, with the King, with the K. I inspire others for collective greatness. How can we collaborate in ways, how can we come together in ways that help us eliminate inequities, inequalities, and inequalities in our world? So that's really what that means. That's why it's inspire others for a purpose, not just inspire them to, get a doctorate or to go get a degree or anything like that. No, let's inspire people so we can fight against this injustice that we're all experiencing right now. And that's a whole different story, politics. And so N is navigate to the north. How do we lead in a way that reflects our values, our belief system, the ways we have been taught properly? So N is navigate to the north. How do we move and lead in a way that recognizes our values? And G, gravitate to the great. In the hood, I say gravitate to the gangsters. And I mean that in the most respectful way. So how do we surround ourselves with people who can sharpen our iron, who can build us, who can give us feedback, who can pave the way, who can be mentors, who can be sponsors? And so my belief is that if we, and in the book I talk about ways to personalize and operationalize each of those. And so if we can do those 4 things, then we can all change the world.
I know that's right. I'm sitting here as you're talking. I'm reading some of the things to see which excerpt I'm going to pull out next. But you're absolutely right in terms of, again, inspiring. And like you said, we're constantly fighting against systemic issues.
Absolutely. Yep. I typically say with inspire, what are ways that we can collectively slash the tires of white supremacy?
Yes. Absolutely. And it's like and I'm not going to go down that road, but anyway, we know everything that's going on. You're talking about slashing tires. They trying to pump up more air. What
Exactly
you
right.
call it? So,
Exactly right. Exactly right. Exactly.
So-
No, that's a great point. It's a great point. But at the same time, again, our job is to slash the tires.
correct.
Because this is throwback to some. We thought that we had progressed, but obviously we have not. And I talk about it in the book too. I believe one of the reasons that we haven't progressed is because in order to have systems change, the first thing that you have to do is have a change in mindset.
Correct.
Even though we've evolved, we wear suits and we don't wear hoods. We meaning not us. The mindset has not changed.
Correct.
The foundation of white supremacist ideology is still alive and well, and so that's why we don't have systemic change.
No, you're absolutely right. Because I'm looking here, I'm reading here. It says, "Bruh, who are you writing this book for? The why is important, but the who is more important in the case of King. The target audience is more important in the case of King because the multiple perspectives of this particular group are rarely elevated in leadership spaces. When I considered writing this book, the target audience, the who, came to me in an undeniable way. When I decided to author this book, I focused on a specific group, brothers. Brothers, this book is for you and to you. While this book can engage, inspire, inform, and challenge a whole lot of folks, I wrote King specifically to Black and brown leaders working in education." That's me. And so it is so important. I mean, and again, my school, I am blessed again to be, for the most part, autonomous. So I get to do things, and because the school is so small, I get to do some things that I may not be able to do in some of my bigger schools. And I've led way larger schools, 10 times the size of what I have now. So with that being said, as your company is Nia, and you were somewhat the Swahilis, on Monday mornings at my school, we do a libation ceremony where I have the plant and I have my bottle of water, and it's voluntary. The young men get an opportunity to come up and whatever's on their mind, whatever's on their heart, and then the rest of the body yells back, "Ashe, Ashe, Ashe." So again, we're teaching that. We're teaching, on Fridays, we break into houses. The house concept. Each of the houses were named after some of the students who were at the school some years ago, and there's 6 of them. There's Ali House, Chavez House, Carver House, Latimer House, X House, Mandela House. They named them because, again, for me, had I been named it certainly would have been a King House. But they named those, and so they breaking those.
Still on the alpha stuff, man. That's the problem, man. No, I'm just joking.
But they can, and so they break into houses and they compete. But they also had to research the people that the houses that are named after them, and so we get a chance to do a lot of cultural type things. In my particular school, I was sharing earlier before you came on the line, I went to the dentist on Wednesday, and he's Jewish. And so we were talking about the office being closed the next day. I said, "Yeah, you're going to be closed for Yom Kippur." So he was shocked. I said, "Yeah, Yom Kippur." He said, "That's your highest, holiest day." He was shocked again. He said, "You know what?" "Yes, we do." I said, "I went over that with my students. We went into what Yom Kippur was all about." He said, "Oh my God, more people need to be doing that." Yes, I get it. Because this is going back to what you were saying earlier about us being human. All right. I get the race, I get the culture, I get the ethnicity, I get it. But at the end of the day, we're all human.
We're all human. We are all human. We are all human. We all come from the same foremother. We're all human. We're all human. Yes, sir. And I believe in humanity. And I think, traditionally we are a human-centric community. I mean, just think about, like I think about South Africa. You mentioned Mandela. And even though, like Native South Africans are the most marginalized, even when Mandela was the presidency and even ANC, they wanted to empower everybody. They didn't match hate for hate,
That's right. That's right.
So, yeah. I just recently, not recently, this time last year, I spent 14 days in South Africa. I actually stayed in 2 of Mandela's homes. And I also spent some time in Robben Island, and it was just such an eye-opening experience, man. It was incredible. Yep.
That is one of the trips I plan to do. I've been all around the world. I have not reached the motherland yet, and I was originally scheduled to go there, and then COVID hit, and the trip got scrapped, and then I haven't gotten it back together since. It's interesting as I go through it, you're naming all the names that you write my passions for, or either my heroes. I see Bob Marley, I see Emperor Haile Selassie.
Absolutely.
Bob Marley's like he is without a doubt my favorite reggae artist, and I had his whole collection at one point. And Emperor Haile Selassie, let's see, because one of my favorite people is Adam Clayton Powell Jr. And Haile Selassie awarded him or bestowed upon him this. It's called the Breastplate Star of Ethiopia, and Adam wore that everywhere he went after he got it. And there was a movie about him. And, whenever I got the history of it, I literally wound up contacting the person that made the piece for the movie, and he made one for me. So I wear it now wherever, in many instances. I don't have it on today, but a lot of times I will put that on, and if people are fascinated by it, I give them the history of it. I said, this is the Breastplate Star of Ethiopia. Haile Selassie bestowed it on Adam Clayton Powell Jr. I said, actually, this is the same person who made it for the movie, made this for me. And so, and it is, but it's like, I'm looking here as I'm reading through the book, all these different names are popping out at me that I am familiar with, but like you said, a lot of the world is not. A lot of folks don't know who Haile Selassie is. A lot of, many don't even know who Bob Marley is.
Yeah. I'm a big Bob fan, big Haile Selassie, student. And I think for me, as a person who, I wouldn't call myself a religious scholar, but a person who's definitely interested in different, religions. For Haile Selassie to basically be revered in the same way that Jesus was revered or has been revered in some spaces is really interesting, and just to connect the dots. Because I don't know if you ever saw that documentary where Rita Marley talks about when she saw Haile Selassie in a parade and he waved his hand, she said she saw the nail indentation in his hand as if he were Jesus on the cross.
Wow.
So, yes, just so many different parallels between, obviously, Coptic Christianity and Rastafarianism. So, yeah.
Absolutely. I'm looking at your quote on your website. To reach greatness, you must look in the mirror, out of the window, and from the balcony. As great leaders intentionally analyze their personal and professional, quote, self-work, unquote. Through those vantage points, a coach can come in handy. In essence, coaches provide the space, time, and structures for leaders to leverage these perspectives to become their greatest selves. Who can't benefit from that?
Yeah, man. So I came from East St. Louis, and we had a graduating class of about 600 kids, and they were all African-American students from low-income community. I went to the University of Missouri, Columbia, and I was in a classroom in my physics class, engineering physics, about 300 kids in there, probably 3 black students. When I was an RA at Mizzou, there were 577 white guys in my building. I'm saying that to say I had to learn different perspectives, different experiences, different people, different ways of moving. And I think as a leader, we need to be able to see things from, again, different vantage points. A lot of time we say I think it's the window, and the mirror, and the something. But I feel like we need to be looking above. We need to be looking to the left, to the right, a 360 sort of perspective to see ourselves and to see the world. And so in coaching, I always ask people, what's another way to look at that? Or could you maybe look through another person's window? Or suppose we take a 30,000-foot view of what we're talking about. So I just think perspective matters, and perspective taking can be transformational for people.
No, you're absolutely right. Matter of fact, whenever I was doing my MEd, the dean of the program always challenged us to look on the balcony, look from the balcony. Like he would tell us, look, act as if we were like in a dance hall or somewhere.
Yep.
And you were on the balcony. He said, look down on the dance floor.
Yep.
As you're standing. So in other words, that's kind of like how he challenges, look at, it's one thing to be on the dance floor. It's another thing to be on the balcony looking down on the dance floor. So as we're in these situations, it's one thing to be like in the forest. It's another thing to be, as you said, at that 30,000 foot level, looking down at the forest. And we do have to do that as leaders. We have to, see the big picture. We're like,
yeah. I mean, especially because, we're programmed, the brain is programmed to draw conclusions and to make inferences. And so sometimes our inferences can be off. And sometimes, many times they're informed by biases. And so we have to check all of those things, and we have to think about things from other perspectives. I think it's just super crucial. As a black man, as a black male leader, the perspective that I really want to make sure, because we can't afford to lose anybody.
Correct.
So one of the groups that has been marginalized, or at least silenced in our community many times, in the education space at least, is black gay male leaders.
Correct.
So part of my commitment is to make sure that all of us have a seat and feel comfortable and feel like we don't have to hide behind anything. So we have to take a look at the people who are underrepresented or who are silent or who may not necessarily, take a strong presence because of societal things.
Absolutely. Because, see, all these systemic things, the societal things, all this is done intentionally and by design. It really is. It's not by accident. All these things that are going on is not accident. They were contrived, and that whether it's conscious or subconscious, it is systemic and it is intentional. Now, I'm looking at, there was another name in there that I saw. You said Michael Jordan. Now, I'm assuming, because I see you had that no debate after that there. I'm assuming you think he is the GOAT as well.
Well, I think he's the GOAT in terms of his leadership. Of course he was there's so many reasons why I think he's the GOAT.
Well, see, that's the reason I'm bringing it up, because I do too. And I say that when I saw you at No Debate, that's the same thing I say, because I work with kids. And so they always throwing up Steph Curry and LeBron James and Kobe. And I was like, I get it, but Michael Jordan was the greatest. I mean, it's just, and I do the same thing. Like, it's not, but because to me, he was the greatest that played the game. Now, that's just.
And I say that, and you and I it seems like we're right around the same era. We had our Dr. J.
Right.
And,
I had to, yep.
We had those people. But his tenacity, his commitment to the work, his ability to have one of the hardest things to do in the world from Ian Buchanan's perspective is to lead grown men.
Correct.
And to be able to lead grown men and to be able to be sort of firm, and with men it's sometimes hard. And for people to follow behind you
right.
is incredible. And not only that, the willingness to be not liked.
Right. Absolutely.
They didn't always love him.
That is correct. I'm
love him at all.
You're right, because I'm finishing up Phil Jackson's book, 11 Rings. I'm in the last couple of chapters, and that's what he talks about in there when he talks about Michael. It's like him and Scottie Pippen. Of course, no, they didn't always get along.
At all. And you talk about Phil's book, and it's so funny because maybe like 3 or 4 months ago, I just looked at The Last Dance again.
Right.
And it really made me appreciate his leadership even more. And it also takes a certain level of like self-confidence.
Right.
Like the great leaders have self-confidence that other people just don't understand.
Correct.
Yeah.
You're right, because I'm down at the conclusion again, ladies and gentlemen. We're coming close. We're not quite done, but we're getting close. I told you the hour go quick. But my guest this morning is Dr. Ian Buchanan. We're talking about a plethora of things, and all of them lead to leadership, and particularly African-American males and how they lead. And I'm down to the conclusion of the book. It says life, legacy, and impact. And you ask questions here. I love them. The King Leadership Framework is not designed to be prescriptive and formulaic. Instead, it is an adaptive approach designed to push you to think more deeply about your leadership in your life. As you walk away from this book, King, you should be able to better respond to the questions below. I love the questions. I might even use them with my teachers. Who am I and who am I becoming? Who do the people I work alongside think I am? Who do I pretend to be? To what extent do I live a mission-aligned life, one that influences and inspires real change? When my professional work is in direct alignment with my personal mission and my North Star, what does that look, feel, and sound like? What are some of the self-limiting beliefs, mindsets, and behaviors that prevent me from reaching my full leadership potential? In other words, how do I self-sabotage? What strengths, gifts, competencies, and or talents show up most often in my leadership walk? Which ones would I like to show up more? What values are most important to me in my workplace? What professional environments allow me to be my most authentic and most effective leadership self? What professional environments stifle my leadership? What is it about my leadership approach that inspires others to be great? Live the life you want to live the legacy you want to leave, be the king you are destined to be. Talk a little bit about these questions. I love them. Like I said, I'm going to use these. I'm telling you right now, I'm going to use these questions with my team.
Yeah, man, I just think they require some very deep thinking, and I think that everybody's response is different, and it helps you rethink about who you are as a person, as a human, as a leader. And so I'm a coach at heart. I'm a capacity builder, a kingmaker at heart. And so those are just questions that I typically use in my coaching practice, and I typically use when I do professional, learning sessions, conferences, workshops, those kinds of things. I just really like to push people's thinking. And one of the things that my friend ChatGPT tells me is that once you get into like your 45, 50, you start thinking about legacy more. And I found myself thinking about legacy a lot more, especially now I have a 10-month-old grandson, Kingston, and so it really makes me think about legacy even more. And I'm at the, the downside of my professional career.
Right.
It just makes me think about, what is the legacy that I really want to lead? And I'm super aggressive in trying to develop a legacy. It's really very important to me, not in an arrogant way, but as, my hip-hop artist, Andre 3000, said back in the day, the South got something to say. And so Ian Buchanan has something to say to the world. So, and it's not Ian Buchanan. I was raised in the Nation of Islam growing up, and I'm a very God-centric person. And so for me, it is, how am I thanking and showing God my appreciation for what he's done for me?
I know that's right. It's interesting that you mentioned the Nation, because I'm a big Malcolm X fan as well. I've been, I live about 45 minutes away from where Malcolm is buried. He and Betty are in the same gravesite, and every now and again I go up and visit his gravesite. Wow. And so, man, we have come down to the end of our time, and what I usually do as we come down to the end of our time, but before I even do that, I'm going to go back to your commentary about legacy. One of the great things about being in education, and this is what I told the education majors Monday night, one of the great things about, and especially, and you're an author and have written a book as well, you do have the opportunity to leave a legacy, because there's always going to be some child. One of the greatest feelings an educator can get is when a child comes back and says, I remember you said this. I remember you said, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here. I had a student, I'm to the point now, I've been in the district long enough now where I'm actually having the kids of kids I taught.
Absolutely.
And so the young man, his son was in my school. He came, matter of fact, interestingly enough, his name was Messiah. So when I got to the school and I see this kid on the register named Messiah, I said, nah, it couldn't be. Then they said Junior. So I pulled him to the side. I said, your father named Messiah? He says, yes. I said, I had your father as a student. Mm. So the senior Messiah comes to me one day. He pulled me aside. He said, can I talk to you? Can I tell you something? I said, sure. What's up? He says, I just wanted you to know that whenever, because this is when I was teaching. I had him as a student when I was teaching. He said, you used to pull me down to your room and I had to read and write, and I hated it. He said, I hated coming down there. I had to write. You made me write. You made me read. I hated it. He says, but had you not done that, I wouldn't have the job I have today.
Man. man, incredible. Incredible.
That's what I'm saying. I had him say that at his son's graduation. When his son graduated, I had him get up and talk to the rest of the parents and say those exact words, because it is something to now have, like you said, impacted a life. Like you've impacted somebody else.
Yeah, man. For me, it's just a way to, just because we're on a gospel station, it's a way for me to thank God. Be like,
right,
God, thank you. Here's what I'm doing to show you how grateful that I am for what you've done for me.
Absolutely.
And so, in the world of Islam, the statement is all praise is due to Allah.
Correct.
So I don't take credit. This is me being a vehicle, and I'm trying to be the best vehicle or vessel that I can possibly be. And that's really what my work is about.
And the truth of the matter is, Dr. Ian, that's why we were created. That's what we were put on earth. We were put here to make life better for somebody else. The interesting thing about that, I tell people this all the time, if everybody was doing that, it would be circular. In other words, as I'm making life better for someone else is making life better for me.
Yeah. And as they say, if was a fifth, we'd all be drunk.
I know that's right. So I tell you what, as we come down to the end, and I was saying this before we got on the air in terms of I love wearing messaging in terms of caps, in terms of T-shirts and stuff. So I am definitely going to order, if it's available for order, I'm definitely going to order that shirt from you that has Rustin on there as well as the other names. I'm going to order that from you because that's I love like right now I have on a breast cancer awareness cap because it's October. But a lot of times I will walk around. My latest cap that I purchased was one that said all is well, because that's usually my response when people ask me how you doing. My response, knee jerk now, is all is well. So I just ordered a cap that's supposed to be coming in a couple of weeks. The only two words on it is I am. That's the only two words on there is I and am. So the shirt, if it's available for order, I will definitely get, because I love messaging.
Yeah, we'll take care of you, man. And we'll get you a king hoodie or long sleeve T-shirt, whatever you want.
All right, man.
One of those too. Yeah.
So I will look at that. And with that being said, this is your opportunity to promote. The only thing you can't say is a dollar amount, but anything short of that, as far as your websites, contact information, the books, the T-shirts, the hoodies, anything you can talk about, with the exception of how much they cost. The only thing you can't say is the dollar amount. They can figure that out whenever they get in touch with you. But I'm going to turn the mic off, and for the next few minutes, the mic is yours to promote in however you'd like.
Okay. Yeah, I want to do two things. I want to promote a couple things, but then I want to also honor one of my brothers before we jump off. So, so you can find me on LinkedIn, Dr. Ian Buchanan. Also, my book, King, a 4-part leadership framework for Black men, is on Amazon. If you would like a special copy, or if you would want to purchase in bulk and you want a discounted price, or if you want a signed copy, then you can contact me directly through LinkedIn or through my email address, which is really simple, Ian, I-A-N, my name, at niaeducationgroup.org, not .com. But if you just Google me, you can find me. So I definitely have the book. I also have a King Leadership Masterclass that I facilitate both in person and virtually. And the masterclass speaks to the question, what if I want to operationalize this book in real life? What if I want to actually feel like or to determine how can I live out this King philosophy? And it's not just for men. It's not just for Black men. It is universal. I've had all kinds of people attend this workshop. So the King Masterclass, and I do all kinds of executive coaching. I've coached 82, 83 people across the country in the last 3 years. But I really want to take a minute just to send prayers out to my dear brother, Dr. Ian Roberts. And if you've been following on the news, you've probably heard of a superintendent in Iowa, Des Moines, Iowa, at one of the biggest school districts, at the biggest school district in Iowa, who has now been captured by ICE. He's a Guyanan brother who actually was an Olympic track athlete, which is so cool. But he's made a big impact on the world in the East Coast. He worked in D.C., he worked in Baltimore, he worked in Philly, he worked here with me in St. Louis, and now he's in Des Moines, Iowa. But I think very soon he'll be deported, and so now they're coming up with all of these charges for my brother, who happens to not just have my same, we both share the name Ian, but we're also both members of Kappa Alpha Psi. And so I just wanted to take a minute to just shout out my brother Ian and to let him know that we're all praying for him and we want to see him soon. So that's it.
What's his last name again?
Ian Roberts.
Ian Roberts. We'll definitely be sending prayers up for that. Because, see, we'd be here for another 2 or 3 hours if we start talking about the ridiculousness of ICE. And so, I mean, here's somebody that's here to serve and this, that, and the other. Just like I said, I won't even go down that road because, one, it can be aggravating, and two, the ridiculousness of it. But I thank you so much. One of the questions somebody texted me in terms of the clothing line was, what are the sizes?
The sizes go all the way up to 3X.
Sizes go all the way up to 3X. All right. Got a couple folks that are faithful listeners that they'll text me personally. They both told me great interview, great episode. So obviously the word is getting out there. Again, my guest this morning, like I said, the book is King. Absolutely love it, because that's what I said. My lady friend and I, we address each other as king and queen. And, you know, I have another.
It's not bruh. It's not homie. It's not cuz. It's not the N word. It's not any of that. It is king because we have to comport ourselves.
Yes, we do.
Not saying that we're not. I'm a product of hip hop.
Right.
My dissertation was around hip hop culture and its impact on black masculinity in schooling. So, and I'm from the hood. So. I just happen to be a black nerd who's an academic, but I believe in us. So yeah, man. Now this was my honor and privilege, and it's Saturday, man. It's 7:00 in St. Louis, so I'm going back to sleep. Right?
I know that's right, because when I get back home, I'll probably take a nap myself. That's what I usually do on Saturdays. I go back home and take a nap myself. But it has been an absolute inspirational, educational joy. So I don't want to just say it's, I wasn't here for pleasure per se, but at the same time, it has been educational, it has been inspiring, it's been entertaining, all of the above. Again, I'm going to read the book from cover to cover, because I usually don't get to read the book to cover until after the interview. Usually before the interview, I get to skim it. But I can actually go back now and read it from cover to cover. And I appreciate the work.
Let me say something about the book real
quick.
Yeah,
go ahead.
So there's also a reader's guide that I'm more than happy to send to people, because the book is written so you don't have to read it from page 1 to page 100. If you like quotes, I have a way for you to just kind of check out the quotes. If you want to take a look at the reflection questions, or if you want to take a look at the strategic actions, or if you want to hear the stories that I tell about each one. So I provide a way for the reader to personalize their experience. So I'll make sure I send you that as well.
All right, brother, that will definitely work. Again, the site is Nia Education Group.org. Has NIAEDUCATION GROUP.org, just like it sounds, just like it's spelled. Reach out and get in touch with this brother if you need any of his services, books, clothing, because like I said, I'm going to order some of the clothing. I love messaging like that, so you can count on me ordering some of the clothing, that's for sure. Yep. And again, man, so glad I met you on LinkedIn. We will stay in touch.
All right, man, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
You do the same.
Okay.
Take care now.